state, local, urban, rural. Does anything change in the approach in terms of, how you're, attacking the problem sets when you get to the community?
Doing research on the community. What is the cultural, political environment? What are some big wins they've had? Are there any challenges that have risen to the forefront that we need to be aware of?
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 3. This is Inside Steer Conversations with Experts. This is a series where we meet some of the people working at Steer and shaping thought and work across North America. Hi, I'm Herb Higginbotham. I'm Executive President of Steer North America. We're a global consultancy that supports public and private organizations that deliver critical services and infrastructure that move and shape our communities. I'm coming from Los Angeles and really excited today to be joined by Nicole Muise Kielkucki in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hello, Nicole.
Hi, Herb.
Nicole is part of our Fourth Economy team. Fourth Economy is a community economic development arm of Steer North America. And in particular, Nicole's been leading in economic development work. She's going to talk a little bit about that with us today. She works across regions in the United States, and your clients, Nicole, you're telling me are like public sector, private sector, nonprofit, sort of like anyone that's helping the community sort of move and shape the vision for the future. With such a wide set of clients, are the problems that you see, are they specific to different regions or different, public or private? Like what does it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, probably 5 years ago or so, for the economy, we were really, I think, at the forefront of talking about things like childcare or housing as key economic development and workforce needs. I think now, especially post COVID, the world has caught up, and now almost every single one of our clients recognizes those supports as integral to their workforce support system. Even though those are really persistent challenges, I think, we're seeing persistent challenges in terms of, energy costs. A lot of our clients, a lot of our communities are worried about energy and want to be part of a high tech, future and
Mhm.
economy, but are also very wary, I think, rightly so, about things like data centers. And, so we're working with clients to help them, really think through those things because they're complex issues. They're not black and white. We wouldn't say they're good or bad. They're clearly a mix, and there's different ways to go about building these systems in a way that really benefits the community, that doesn't cause undue harm, but also is good for the economy and generates jobs and economic opportunities.
Talk to us a little bit about maybe some of the communities, some of the projects where we're specifically able to, step in. And maybe, if you've had some projects where we can sort of see the impacts of what those are, like what does it look like? What does it look like to step in and work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one project that immediately comes to mind is our work with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, working on their first ever statewide housing action plan. So this is a 10-year housing action plan for the entire state of Pennsylvania. It's a huge endeavor. We know housing is really complex, and as I said, it shows up in nearly all of our work. Even when we don't intend to talk about housing, it somehow shows up in the conversations that we're having with our clients and their stakeholders. So, in this particular project, I think when the project is released, you'll see things featured like housing for all, and making sure that folks that are vulnerable in our communities have access to resources, that we're looking at the system holistically, from market rate and luxury markets all the way to subsidized and homes for our unhoused populations. So it really spans that gamut, and I'm again really proud of the work that Pennsylvania did. It was a joint project between DCED, which is our Department of Economic and Community Development, PHFA, which is our housing finance agency, and DHS, so our Department of Human Services. So a really nice coalition of state agencies, I think, all working together. We were able to provide some really critical analysis about the state of housing. Our analysis team did a great sort of, this is the status of where we are today in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a very diverse state. It's a big state. It takes 6 hours to drive from one end to the other, and you have big cities like Philly and Pittsburgh, and smaller metros sprinkled out throughout, and of course some very rural areas. So complex to design a housing strategy that works across all of those complex variables. So really rewarding project, really big in terms of scale and size, and I think it's going to be really impactful in Pennsylvania.
When you tell me, state, local, urban, rural, does anything change in the approach in terms of, how you're, attacking the problem sets when you get to the community?
One of the first things we do, even when we're submitting a proposal, is doing research on the community. What is the cultural, political environment? What are some big wins they've had? Are there any challenges that are have risen to the forefront that we need to be aware of? So I think taking that intelligence and then working with the client, we ask them those questions as well when we start the process. What should we know about? Have there been planning processes recently that worked well, and why? And if not, have you had some that failed, and why do you think that happened? So we're always really intentional, I think, about how we're gathering information, but not to overgeneralize, because I don't like to give the impression that all rural communities are the same. I think that's a
Sure.
common pitfall, and same thing, of course, with urban environments as well. Every place is unique, but there are through lines that we see. So when we're working in more rural areas in particular, and this goes for, just low resource communities and community groups,
Mhm.
we're very mindful of capacity. A lot of times in rural communities, for example, one program that we are really proud of, another long time project, is here in Allegheny County in Pennsylvania, where Pittsburgh is, and we've been working with the Allegheny County for Economic Development, Community Economic Development, for on their business district revitalization program, and that focuses on main streets outside of the city center. And so again, you have these smaller communities. Sometimes they're 2, 3, 4,000 people, to Pittsburgh's 300,000, and they're resource constrained, but they have a really nice historic main street that was bustling at the peak of the industrial era here in Pittsburgh, and they've since experienced population loss, and they're trying to figure out, what is our next thing, what is our identity, what's going to drive us forward as a community, and how do we keep people here? I mean, we hear that in small places, rural places, we hear that all over the places. How do we keep our kids here? Or once they've moved away, how do we get them back? So
My mom
so
and
that's
dad.
yeah. Of
Yeah.
course, yeah. And you hope to see that boomerang, but something's got to draw them back, and I think that's where it goes back to the housing conversation. Of course, there has to be job opportunities, but again, people are much more mobile with remote work. There's opportunities for folks to live in that rural community, or that picturesque small town outside of a big city, work remotely for a larger company, and still contribute to the local economy. So that's one, I think, generalization. I think in some of our kind of larger markets, I think there's a differentiation between big cities that are growing, and
Mhm.
big, suburban areas that are growing, and those that are still big cities but are in decline. So,
Right.
or staving off decline. So we do a lot of work in the Rust Belt. And again, these are, post-industrial, communities, and a lot of manufacturing, and there we're looking at how do we pivot? How do we adopt advanced manufacturing and those things that are going to make this community competitive in the future? The problems in those communities are much different than the problems in a growing suburb. For example, we've worked outside of Atlanta a fair bit, again on housing and economic development, and they're growing rapidly, and so their challenges are much more tied to traffic and safety, and again, kind of establishing an identity that they don't want to lose as they grow. Definitely some differences and some nuances, and I think that variety is what keeps me engaged and keeps me excited about the work. Is you have to think critically. No two clients are the same, and every day is different, and that's both challenging and fun.
Um, Thank you, Nicole, so much. I really appreciate the time that you gave today to talk. And to all of our audience, thank you for listening. This has been episode 3 of Inside Steer, Conversations with Experts. And hope that wherever you're at, that you're able to make a difference in the world today. Take care, everyone.